Hey, it's Andy Yanez, and you're listening and or watching to another episode of Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. And we are off the heels of number one Houston's 76-42 victory over North Florida. And a lot happened in this game. I mean, we started off with a quote that Kelvin Sampson said about Marcus Sasser, where you could tell it was going to be one of those nights where Marcus Sasser was going to be on one. He was going to give people the business, and then he got injured. He suffered a lesion. He suffered a cut. I believe the school said it was above his left eyebrow. And Kelvin Sampson, after the game, said that Sasser required 5 stitches. Now, here's what Kelvin Sampson had to say about Marcus Sasser. Quick clip on an injury update on Marcus Sasser.
Stitches, nasty. That was a nasty one for the boxers. When they hit you and open up your right above your, I think it's right above his eyebrow. That was 5 stitches. He'll be all right.
5 stitches, he'll be all right. That was the injury update presented by, hey, if we could have a sponsor there, we could have that too. But in regards to the night overall, I think in particular, the 2 players that really stood out. One was Jamal Shead, because he was the orchestrator. He was the one. He did not score a single point in this game, but he had 10 assists. He had 4 steals. He had 1 block. He had 4 rebounds and 0 turnovers, which that stat in and of itself, that stat sheet that he had, that stat line that he had, that's impressive. And then Jarvis Walker, who had his first collegiate double-double of his career. He had 12 points, 10 rebounds. He was one of the players that Kelvin Sampson was high on after this game, and really just had a good bounce-back performance after a string the last few days. He said against St. Mary's, Jarvis Walker really had a struggle with toughness, and he was able to bounce back in this game. But joining me for Let's Rage Coogs, as always, Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review. Kris, thank you for allowing us to use your platform, your channel, to be able to stream this live. And Da'Yon Dunlap joining me as well. How are you two doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm disheartened to know that my man is fighting with one healthy wing. Da'Yon Dunlap. He's a Cougs. He's a fighter. He's a trooper. So glad that you're joining us, my man. So how much time are we going to spend talking about tonight's game win?
Yeah.
And how much time are we going to talk about Saturday's matchup against Alabama? The fans want to know, Andy Yanez. The fans want to know.
Yeah.
We're gonna pull Kelvin. We don't care about starting. I'm joking. I'm sure we'll get to that in a minute. But I do want to focus on this game because, in particular, I wanted to focus on those 2 players first, Jamal Shead and Jarvis Walker. First, Jarvis Walker, and still waiting on the clip to officially be registered. It should be ready within the next few seconds to clip. But Kelvin Sampson went in on Jarvis Walker, and again, something he's mentioned throughout the season early on, and in particular when it comes to freshmen and consistency. But he said he was really high on Jarvis Walker today just because of again, going back to that St. Mary's game, he said that he lacked a little bit of toughness in that game, and it was a difference in tonight's game.
Yeah, the quote that he said after Saturday's win was he's got to get some more mud in Jarvis's blood. So, and he said tonight that Jarvis played tougher tonight. So that's a step in the right direction. Got to be more consistent. And as everybody knows who watches and follows the Cougs, Cougar tough is different if you've never experienced it before. Jarvis Walker has a lot of natural talent, but that does not mean he has Cougar toughness yet. And he's learning how to be Cougar tough. And he displayed that toughness tonight. We'll see how consistent he is going forward. But double for him he was aggressive tonight, impactful on both ends of the floor. So it's a good step in the right direction for him and the team.
Yeah, like Kris just said, Cougar toughness is a different toughness, a different type of requirements that go into being that type of tough. And I think tonight is just an experience, more experience for him, more repetition for him to go out and continue to learn how to play in that Cougar toughness, like Kris just mentioned. Not only that, knowing how to play within that culture of that on college basketball, because he's still only a freshman adjusting from high school. And so as I was watching this game, I was just looking at it in totality. This is just another experience. All of this is more experience, not only for the young players, but for the entire team in their quest to go throughout the season. But I'm like Kris. I think this episode, once we get this game out of the way, let's preview the Bama game. That's what the fans want to hear.
That's what they want to hear. But before we do, once again, I do like to give a shout out to for those of you guys that are watching us live, this is Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family and streaming live on the Houston Round Bar Review YouTube channel. And for our audio only versions, whether you be listening, this is going to be the first episode. This is the debut of Let's Rage Coogs on gallerysports.com. So if you are listening to Let's Rage Coogs via gallerysports.com, we appreciate you being able to check out and come back with us on Saturday when, like Da'Yon and Kris have both alluded to, that's the cream of the crop game right there, at least early on in the season. Number 1 Houston taking on number 8 Alabama. We hope that we can keep you around, and then hopefully you guys like what we do here on Let's Rage Coogs. And then obviously, if you are listening in our other audio-only versions on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever else you get your podcast, and Pod Slam at Jamma. But I do want to give a shout-out to sponsors roll, starting with Hoop and Hall of the Houston Cougars Micro Collective. They are the entity behind the Star Pizza Sack app commercials, which if you haven't seen them, we had one with D'Anthony Jones where it's absolutely the best, where he's sacking Mike Pittman, and really a good segue to our other sponsor, Instar Pizza, who is one of the sponsors of Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. Star Pizza, Houston's best pizza since 1976. Also want to give a shout out to one of our other sponsors, and BB's, the home of Tex Orleans cooking, with multiple locations across the Houston area. If you are planning a meal or just want to pick something up to go, make sure that it is BB's, and be sure to follow them on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at BB's Tex Orleans. That's at BBS Tex Orleans on all social media platforms. Big shout out to Challenge Office Products. If you're in need of any office supplies, be sure to reach out to them at 713-644-4007. And last but not least, a big shout out to the Fritz Kennel, the family owned and operated business that specializes in dog and cat boarding, daycare, and bathing. The Fritz Kennel, located at 9513 Yelpendale Drive in Houston, Texas. If you're going out and need a home for your furry friend, make sure it's our guys at the Fritz Kennel. You can contact them at 713-464-9852. And on that note, I'm going to toss it over to Kelvin Sampson. And here is what he had to say about Jarvis Walker, talking a little bit more about that toughness factor.
As tough as we needed to play. You got to learn to play tough. It's not about talent. If talent was the case, then it's like the year we went to the Final Four. Number 1 recruiting class in the nation that year that had 5 Jarrises was Kentucky. They didn't make the tournament. We went to the Final Four because we had men. You don't win with freshmen at this level, multiple freshmen. You just don't. Nobody does. Number 1 recruiting class was Kentucky. The number 2 recruiting class was Duke. The thing that they both had in common that year, neither one made the tournament because they had a bunch of Jarrises. Talented kids that are 19 years old. We'd all like to make our living playing against those guys. They're just not ready. Now, the next year, they're going to be a problem. The year after that, huge problem. Because they go from 19 to 20 to 21. They go through all the trials and tribulations and wars and battles of getting your head beat in, get beat up, get knocked down, but you keep getting up. Jarvis has been knocked down this year, but he's keep getting up. I told him, come to work every day. The first step on the ladder to success is always failure. Most people, immature people don't deal with failure. And immature people don't understand that it is going to be failure. I tell them, prepare for failure. You're going to fail. We all fail. Figure it out. Nobody's feeling sorry for you. It's like Emmanuel. Look at all the trials and tribulations he's been through. Look at tonight. He's better. He's a much better player today than he was a month ago. But any time that I get Emmanuel minutes like tonight, it's an investment in our future. These guys are our future. JVA, how many minutes you play tonight, JVA? 19. Emmanuel got to play 19. If Marcus hadn't have got hurt, Emmanuel might not have got 19, might have got 12. So there's always, I saw a lot of positives tonight. But the biggest takeaway that I took out of that game is, why the hell didn't Ryan Elton play more?
We'll go to Joseph here and then we'll go back to Kristen.
I don't know, are you done with that thought?
So it was a passing thought.
Kelvin, on Jarris being a freshman and playing meaningful minutes, was it based on with need, his physical, just the fact that
What?
his physical, no, in terms of him playing
Tonight?
and being a freshman and playing as much as he's playing, was it?
Yeah.
Need going into season and the
For
fact
me?
that, yeah, for
No.
him physically that.
No, I just that's one good thing about being a head coach. You start who you want to. I just want to start, see how you do. He said, he played good in one of the open scrimmages, not so good in the other. He's had good games, bad games. If I were to put my 5 guys that impacted winning out there, I'd probably have Reggie out there. But our guys don't have egos. We don't deal with egos here. We coach them out of there. This isn't an ego program. Other coaches probably have to put up with that stuff, but our ego is a team ego. Our ego comes from getting 50% of your misses and being excited about that because we did it together. Jamal getting 10 assists, being excited for Jamal because we're a team. But our kids, those freshmen have to understand, but that's why you have a culture. Programs that have a culture never have consistency because you're basing it on something that the players aren't playing for each other. Our kids play for each other. They're excited for each other's success, and they're very vocal about that.
Once again, that was head coach Kelvin Sampson talking about Jarvis Walker, and then also towards the end there, he kind of touched on overall kind of a little bit more broadly in terms of the importance of the culture of the program, and you heard it that soundbite specifically. Teams that don't have a culture, they really struggle in particular being able to get freshmen to buy in terms of that toughness level. I have a clip later on in terms of Emmanuel Sharp and him describing really what it's been like for him to having to adjust to bringing that toughness level consistently. But Kris, I'll go to you first. What were just your overall takeaways from hearing Kelvin Sampson in that clip?
I love Coach saying we coach the ego out of players.
Mm-hmm.
That individual ego stuff, yeah. Part of being a Cougar is team first. That's why the 5 stars, all that kind of. It's kind of curious. This year, we have not really heard a lot of the players say culture, like we did with last year's team, but it's still understood. The Cougar culture is predominant here in the program. That's what makes them a successful program now. So that is key. Jarvis Walker, talent-wise, we're going to see how he does Saturday in a hyped-up building from the start. Even, can we already go ahead and say it, that the T-shirt, the red and white stripes, T-shirts will be provided for the fans. You don't have to bring your own, your own attire will be provided for you in your seats. Get here early, be loud, all that good stuff to hype it up. But this game, with Marcus being injured with laceration stitches and not playing past 8 minutes or whatever it was, we saw some strange lineups. We saw Emmanuel Sharp and Ramon Walker leading the offense. Ramon Walker was not leading the offense. Jamal Sheard did not play more than 25 minutes. So we saw some combos at the lead guard spots that in a pinch might have to see later on in this season. But it was good to see the investment of other guys playing, getting minutes. JV playing 19 minutes. It's a lot for him. 14 points in 19 minutes, 2 strong dunks. He's getting more comfortable. And I think the coaching staff trusts him. It's a lot of positives from this game in terms of investing for the season and not just being 9-0.
Yeah, before I toss it over to you, just one thing to add on right there, like you mentioned, Kris, about the different lineups that we got to see from the Cougars tonight. But one thing that Kelvin Sampson said, even though there was a lot of different lineups, it was understood. I mean, the expectations, the standard was still there for those players. And when he was when he had talked about rebounding, he said, hey, it doesn't matter who's in there. They know what the expectations are, and they're expected to uphold them. And that's something that they did really well in today's 76-42 win over North Florida.
Right, and that's why I use the word experience in the beginning because, like Chris said, it's an investment on the young players, and Coach Sampson said it's investment, like Chris just explained as well, this season. And this experience tonight, another game before a big game, it's all a valuable experience to play collectively, individually. All of it is great experience for everyone in totality, and so I think it was a lot good takeaways from this game. But overall, I mean, I've seen what I need to see from the team, from this team against smaller competition. Like I'm ready for the big boys. I'm ready for conference. I'm ready for the season to really ramp up a bit, I should say.
And Dan, but to add on to your point about development, again, going back to something you've said throughout here on Let's Rage Coogs and even on the Potsdam and Jamma podcast, that's something that Kelvin Sampson in this program, they've really put an emphasis on. And Kris, that's something that he's mentioned with JVA Francis in the past. Like, they felt comfortable going to him and having him take that next step. Now, they're still trying to bring him along the way. But Kelvin said at the end of the day, it's the players and see how quickly they develop, how quickly really the effort they give will determine one, how quickly they develop, and two, what kind of minutes they play. He said he doesn't pick the starters, the players end up deciding who starts themselves.
And JV said tonight in post game that he waited his turn. He's still waiting his turn. He waited behind Josh last year, and because he understands that's part of the Cougar culture. So these players, they have bought in. They're 2 feet into the program. That's important. But I want to also mention a guy we touched on after Saturday's Let's Race Coogs After Dark. Ramon Walker played today and crashed those defensive boards. His energy, the Da'Yon touched on it, inspired the team tonight. It's good to see him back. The hustle he provides, the spark he provides, crashing the boards. He didn't make a shot, but he still had an impact on the glass for the team, and that's important going forward.
Yeah, he has a motor that Coach Sampson refers to. Nate he got a motor similar to Nate's as far as the relentlessness out on the court. It's contagious.
And we were just waiting on you, man, to shift gears and talk about Saturday. So you're running the show. You let us know.
Yeah, we'll shift gears in a second, but before we do, I'd like to remind everyone that they are watching Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. The Saxenian Family is the primary sponsor for Let's Rage Coogs for the remainder of the men's basketball regular season and into the American Athletic Conference tournament, postseason tournament in come March. And also, we'd like to remind that you're listening to Let's Rage Coogs, the unofficial Houston postgame show of football and men's basketball, and tossing it over to Media Row. Do want to give big shout out to our sponsors, beginning with the Fritz Kennel sponsor row. What did I call it? I called it Media Row. Good.
Yeah.
Well, I have radio roll stuck in my head, so every time I say it. Thanks for the catch. Sponsor roll, starting with the Fritz Kennel, our partners over at 9513 Yelpendale Drive in Houston, Texas. Once again, the Fritz Kennel is a family-owned and operated business that specializes in dog and cat boarding, daycare, and bathing. If you need to contact them, make sure that you do so at 713-464-9852. And coming up second on sponsor row, BB's, the home of Tex Ordnance Cooking, with multiple locations across the Houston area. Make sure that if you want to pick up some Tex Ordnance food style home with you, or even planning for the holidays, the big holiday is around the corner in just 3 weeks now. Be sure to do so at BB's. If you'd like to contact them, you can do so at whatever location is closest to you. And if you want to follow them on social media, be sure to do it at BB's Tex Orleans on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That's at BB's Tex Orleans. Also, a shout out to Challenge Office Products. If you're in need of office supplies in the Houston area, make sure that you do it by reaching out to Challenge Office Products at 713-644-4007. And last but not least, a big shout out to our two sponsors in Hoop and Holler, the Houston Cougars Micro Collective, the entity behind the Star Pizza commercials, such as the Sac Ab commercials with D'Anthony Jones. Star Pizza, Houston's best pizza since 1976, and a partner with Let's Rage Coogs from the very beginning this year, going back to September 3 when the football team took on UTSA way back when there was a much different time for the football team. But on that note, okay, we will I guess you got no choice. You got to wrap it up. But the last thing I do want to say, and in terms of the different lineups that we did see for Houston, I think one of the interesting things was when Tremont Mark, and a lot of it had to do because Marcus Sasser was out. So they kind of put Tremont Mark in a role where maybe, obviously, we don't know the answer to this because we're not inside the head of Kelvin Sampson, but it seemed like at times it was really on Tremont Mark to have to be the playmaker. Now, he did a good job at being able to get some decent looks, and he finished 4 of 10 on the night. He had 10 total points, so he had a pretty decent shooting night. But when it comes to playmaking standpoint, he only had two. He had 2 assists. I'm looking at it. He only had 2 assists on the stat sheet. But I'm just curious to get your thoughts on Mark overall, and in terms of specifically that playmaking, because that's been an area that Kelvin Sampson said just last week is something that's kind of the next step for him, being able to become an overall player, better playmaker.
Before he got injured, Kelvin said that Tremont was one of the best passers on the team last year. So he has it in him. He did not have a turnover tonight, so that's a definite positive. It's just seeing him lead the offense is another step in his growth. So he did okay. Him, Ramon Walker, and Emmanuel Sharp took turns leading the offense at times. They look like guys who are not used to leading offense, on a consistent basis. But this game, North Florida, sorry, thank you for coming in, getting that check. But it was about improvement and investing in the season. So to have those guys at different times run the offense was good for the Cougs going forward. Tremont Mark will be asked to do it when they stagger Marcus's and Jamal's minutes and have one on the bench. And Tremont will have to do that, lead the offense a little bit. As long as you don't have any turnovers, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, for me, he looks comfortable. And also goes back into the experience, more experience for him on the floor in that role. But he looked really comfortable, especially in the pick and roll. And so I wasn't really surprised that Coach Sampson put the ball in his hands more to let him initiate the offense, because I think he can do that in spurts when Jamal and Marcus is on the floor together. And that goes part of him being more aggressive, which I talked about a couple games ago. And so I think it's just more experience, more all around good for him. And so he did look really good in the pick and roll, picking his spots, be able to get inside, knock down his mid-range. But I think that next level for him is to use his threat and scoring to make the game easier for others, because like Kris just said and Coach Sampson said, he definitely has that ability. And so it's very good to see him being aggressive, him to continue to learn to pick apart the college game, when to score, when to be aggressive, when to make plays for others and stuff like that. But I'm loving what I'm seeing from Tremont.
And I want to toss it out there, because I was kind of surprised that Coach, when he said it, talking about next year, when he said he knows one player will be gone from this year's team, Marcus Sasser. He did not say 2 people being gone from this team that he knows, as in the second being Jarris Walker. So that was kind of eye-opening to me just a little bit. I mean, it's December. We see the mock drafts of 2023, all those kind of things, and everybody projects Jarris to go in the first round, lottery pick. But as of December 6th, Coach Sampson says he knows Marcus will be gone. Just put it out there.
Yeah, that's something that caught my eye too. And it's a good thing you brought it up, because I had it in my head. Is that nothing, or I mean, like you said, it's just December. It's a process. He has to be able to become more consistent. He, referring to Jarris Walker, pronouns pal. But in regards to Walker, is that something that could it just be Coach trying to light a fuel, or is it something that maybe we're just nitpicking at it and we're making too big of a deal?
I think it's something in the sense of players trusting Coach Sampson in the process of his development, and trusting that he's going to give him a really good assessment at the end of the year on where he think he's at. Of course, he have projections and what people will be saying on the outside noise, but I think for the trust in a person who you're with every single day, was proof in the pudding, it was a great at developing. He's going to trust that assessment and that one-on-one with Coach Sampson and the staff of where he is at the end of the year. I don't think it's foregone. His mind is made up that, I'm out after this year. Because if that's the case, I don't know if maybe you can 100% buy in with that mindset. I'm not sure, but I think it's something there. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that his mind is made up that he's just gone.
No, that's great.
He hasn't played consistently well enough these first 9 games to warrant a high draft pick. That does not mean he won't get advice from somebody else outside the program. Go, man, go, that kind of stuff. But he has to play better consistently the rest of this season for a team to make make sense to take him high. In my opinion,
a lot of players too, young players, they'll draft them on potential, and so even if he doesn't play maybe even better or more consistent, the potential aspect of people seeing him and get him drafted lottery.
But Da'Yon, to your point, and Kris, I'm curious to get your thoughts on it. I think that you're right. If you're in a mindset where, heck, I'm only going to be here 1 year, and after this year I'm out, I don't think you can ever really fully buy in if that's the mentality you have. Kris, what say you?
That's a great point. And for weeks now, I've said it. He needs to be tougher consistently to be a Coug player. If he just goes through the motions up and down and be inconsistent, at some point, Coach Sampson will say, well, if you're not going to give me what I need, I'm going to go to Rage Coogs. And we'll win without you.
That is an interesting point. He did say that if he had to choose a lineup right now, if he went with all players that winning, Reggie Cheney would be in. That's what Sampson said after today's game.
So, but I think tonight was the first step of him playing tough, Cougar tough. Great matchup, potential lottery picks, NBA picks, in Saturday's game. We'll see how he handles that. Will he shine, rise to the occasion, or have an inconsistent game and not play well? And the Cougars can still win in that case.
And in regards to Sampson, one of his favorite things, because I lost count how many times he said it, but he said it tonight after the game. The first step in the ladder to success is failure. And he said it multiple times. And he said that Jarris Walker, he's battled through adversity this season. He's gotten knocked down this season, is what Kelvin Sampson said. But to Walker's credit, he's gotten back up. And again, it's a process. Today, it's barely his ninth collegiate career game overall, so it's still early in the process. And again, I think the biggest thing for Walker and for all the freshmen in particular is that consistency, which we've talked about in previous shows, and Kris, you mentioned it in this show. And speaking of those freshmen, one of those top end freshmen that Houston will see on Saturday, playing for that other team wearing that Crimson Tide red, and Brandon Miller. We're going to get to him in a second, but before we do, we're going to hear what Emmanuel Sharp had to say about learning and adjusting to Houston and the toughness, the consistent level of toughness this program demands.
Yeah, right. Go ahead.
Emmanuel, how would you describe that kind of transition, just in terms of having to learn to be able to play at that level that they expect in terms of a toughness standpoint? What's that like from your perspective?
I mean, it really takes 100% of your effort, and just being able to sit and see that from the bench, you learn a lot so that you're ready when you do go in the game, because you know what the players in front of you are doing.
That effort level, it is an adjustment period, and it's something that, like you said, Emmanuel has had the luxury where he can kind of take a step back a little bit and gets to see from the bench, what guys like Marcus Sasser, Jamal Shedd, Juwan Mark, those veterans, what they bring to the table night in, night out. Now, compared to Jarris Walker, he's been thrown into the fire, and he's had to learn on the fly by experience.
Yeah, and he's had some inconsistent moments. And I think a few fans have commented on it, and I'm going to put it out there. A lot of scouts will be at Saturday's game. I think last count was 35, I think, the number we saw.
Yeah.
So for the younger players, all the players, because every college basketball player has a dream of getting to the NBA. But if so many scouts are going to be at this game Saturday, you still can't force things. It's still a team sport. Okay, you still have to play within a team concept and then come down the stretch. If it's time to be a closer, be a closer. But an NBA scout, no scout wants to see you jack up a 35-footer 2 minutes into the basketball game. Play the team concept, pass the ball, play good defense, and don't play like it's all about you, because you will lose. Some team will just, this guy, it's all about him, and they'll move on to somebody else. So all the youngsters. It's still a team sport. A lot of hype. Fans going to be talking to these guys from now until Saturday tip-off time. We want Alabama. We want Alabama. All these kind of things. You got to do it for us. You got to do it for us. Game on December 10th. The Cougs might win. Could win by double digits. They might lose. But as Coach Sampson said, you know what? There's going to be a game right after that on Tuesday. So the hype is real. We're all excited about it. But it's still a team sport. And the best team will win. The better team will win Saturday.
Since the conversation has been geared for there, it's the time that everyone's been waiting for. Question of the night: what are you most looking forward to Saturday's game against number 8 Alabama? If you are watching live, be sure to chat your responses in our live chat here on the Houston Round Bar Review YouTube channel. If you're listening to the audio only version, the morning after, be sure to tweet us on Twitter, whether it's at PodSlamajama. If it's me personally, at Yanez_5, Kris and Da'Yon, that can get at you guys too. At your respective Twitters, or if you're listening to this on gallerysports.com, be sure to tag them as well at Gallery Sports. But before we do need to do one more pain of the bills in regards to sponsor role, starting with you are watching and or listening to Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. The Saxenian Family, the primary sponsor for Let's Rage Coogs throughout the entire men's basketball regular season and into the American Athletic Conference postseason tournament. Let's Rage Coogs, the unofficial Houston men's and football post-game show. And our sponsor roles, I almost said it again, Kris. Our sponsor roles, starting with Hoop and Holler, the Houston Cougars Micro Collective, the entity behind those Star Pizza commercials, which segues into one of our other sponsors in Star Pizza, Houston's best pizza since 1976. With 3 different locations across the Houston area, Star Pizza is just a phone call away. Transitioning to our other partners in BB's, the home of Tex Orleans cooking. If you're in the holiday season, you need a meal to pick up, maybe you're just in the mood for some Tex Orleans cooking, make sure that it is BB's across different Houston locations. This is live, folks. Across different Houston area locations, make sure that you stop by at your nearest one and follow them on social media at BB's Tex Orleans. That's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at BB's Tex Orleans. If you are in the Houston area, you're in the need for some office supplies, make sure that it is Challenge Office Products who delivers them for you and gets them to you. If you are in need of those supplies, you can reach Challenge Office Products at 713-644-4007. And last but not least, if you are going out of town and you need a home for your dog or cat or for your friend, make sure it is our guys at the Fritz Kennel, located at 9513 Yuppendale Drive, Houston, Texas 77080. If you need to contact them, be sure to do so at 713-464-9852. And for all of our sponsors, including the Saxenian Family, if you do stop by, make sure you tell them Let's Rage Coogs sent you by. This is a partnership, so be sure to spread the love with our sponsors, because they do support us in being able to do this post-game show after each and every game, which is not an easy task. But now, the moment you've all been waiting for, because this is it. This is the main headline, like you mentioned, Kris. You can clearly tell this is a big game just in terms of what the Houston program is doing for this game. I think this is the first time they've ever coordinated something like this. You can kind of tell with they're going to do a stripe out, which I know you've seen it for playoff games with the Rockets and Toyota Centers in the past with what they do for every playoff game. They announced today they're going to have a shirt. Every person in attendance for this game will have a shirt at presumably at their seat, that is going to help them stripe out the Fertitta Center. Last time I was talking to Jeremy Branham, who does the play-by-play for radio and really does a great job. He's kind of the voice for Houston Cougars men's basketball. Last time he said some of the tickets on secondary markets were going for north of $200, $300. Like, this is a hot ticket in town. This is going to be, if you're in this building, it's going to be almost an exclusive type event. And obviously, the big reason for that is the first time 2 top 10 teams in the nation meet inside the Fertitta Center, and it will be number 8 Alabama, 7-1, coming into the Fertitta Center, taking on number 1. That's right, your number 1 Houston Cougars that will be entering that game at 9-0. Where do you guys want to start? Do we start with the current iteration of Alabama? Do we go back to last season and that goaltending call to end the game, which is something that the Houston fans, I'm sure they still have that bitter taste in their mouth, just when they're
yes, they do.
Yes, where should we start?
The current team. Who's on playing last year's team? Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller takes 7 threes a game. My man has a green light. Green light, half his attempts, 14 attempts, 14 shots a game, 7 are threes. And he makes about 3.5 almost per game. So he gets them up, shooting high percentage. One key will get him off the 3-point line and make him do something else besides shoot threes, because he likes to do that. I mean, I think I checked the stats real quick. He's taken almost 25% of the team's 3-pointers. So one young man, so he's got the green light. So we'll kind of see. He's 6'9". We'll see who matches up with him on the perimeter. You know,
He's got
Jarris,
the
Jamal.
neon green light.
So we shall see how the coaching staff chooses to defend him. But I'm just looking forward to the matchup. It's going to be a lot of hype around it. You know, we can talk about all kinds of different things with Jarris Walker, which Jarris Walker will show up. How would Juwan Roberts look, you know, on the post? How many touches will he get? Things like that. But hey, let's have fun. And we answer this question right here from Ignacio. Marcus Sasser, 5 stitches over his left eye. He'll be fine, ready to go for Saturday's game.
Yeah, I think we should start with the guard matchups between both teams. I think Brandon Miller is probably going to be on the top of the scouting report, averaging 20 a game. He does shoot a lot of threes, but he's a player that can get it off the dribble as well. Nice, smooth stroke, has a lot of length. So, I mean, I think Tremont might start on because of his length and his ability, but I wouldn't be surprised if Marcus started on him as well, because he has that ability to get under him and really pressure him and make him put the ball on the floor. He can shoot over Marcus, but the Marcus' ability to pressure him and speed him up a little bit, I think, can give him some trouble. And so I think it's definitely going to start with the guards matchup. Quinterly has been coming off the bench a little bit ever since he suffered his AC. He had some big games of recent. I'll be looking to see if Jamal, like he did tonight and has done throughout the season, can control the tempo of the game. Not only offensively, can he get out to get them out in transition and get them some transition buckets when they don't have to execute against Alabama's half-court defense with a lot of length and athleticism. And also defensively, can he control the tempo as well with guarding the ball, making them execute in the half-court set against Houston's top defense. And so I think the guard matchup is going to be huge. I'm going to see if Marcus can come out with a sense of urgency early to get the crowd in it. And all it's going to take for him to make one big shot, however he gets it in. I think he's going to be the one to play off the crowd, get the crowd up, and kind of lead it from that aspect. And so, I think our 2 leading guards, Marcus and Jamal, is gonna be the key to kind of get things started. And I think everyone else will kind of follow suit in that aspect, though. But I can't wait to see it, how people are going to respond, because, like Kris said, not only is the pressure when you got NBA scouts, you got number 1, top 10, all these different elements that's going into this game. One thing about it, big-time players make big-time plays in big situations, big games. Big players show up. Bust pipes of pressure make stars. And so I'm going to be seeing which comes out and play like a star, because I think games like this where you can really tell what a kid is made of. And so I can't wait to see it. I'm very, very excited, starting with the guard matchup.
And Jamal Shed is ahead of the snake on the defense. So I want to say this. I'm putting it out there in the universe. I truly hope the referees do not call a tight whistle and let both teams play. Okay, no one's going to be at the game, see the refs call 2 fouls on Marcus Sasser in the first minute. No one's there to see 2 fouls of Brandon Miller in the first 90 seconds. Okay, let them play. Let them decide this on the court with their skills. They're tough. We'll see who the tougher team is and all those things. But I'm just putting it out there right now. Please, 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 let the young men play.
Yeah, and when I know I mentioned it going back to last season, looking up and down the roster for Alabama, and even Kelvin Sampson touched on it post game in this game, there's a lot of new faces for both teams. So even going back, I know the fans in particular are going to have that. It's going to be a new roster top to bottom for Alabama. They have a few players that are still remaining from that were on the roster last season when Houston played, and even in regards to the Cougars, Marcus Sasser is still started in that game before he got injured. But I think it's just going to be interesting. You look top to bottom. Juwan Roberts, he had good moments in the Alabama game, but he wasn't he doesn't have the role he has now where he was a starter. JB Francis, where he's having spotty minutes. I think this upcoming Saturday's game against Alabama might be one of those games where you see a lot more of Reggie Chaney.
Reggie Chaney possibly you might see some minutes from J.V. Francis for the athleticism and the long arms. So we're kind of curious. We'll see how Coach Sampson have a plan, but then he'll see how the game dictates it and who is giving him effort, and he'll go with them for as long as possible.
Yeah, but it's a great thing about Sampson. He let each game story develop and tell his own story. Every game is his own story. He let whoever's that starring player in that game, he let them shine. And so, man, I'm excited to see it. Two great coaches. That's a good guard. Another good guard is Mark Sears from Alabama. He's been having a really good transfer. He's having a good season. So it's going to be good guard play and a lot of length and athleticism. And the post players, which J1 will we get? It's going to be against better competition. We get the J1 that can be really effective in the post and has relentless energy, because one thing from this year, last year, it was one thing when he got into the game rebounding. Now he has multiple roles of producing multiple things. And so his rebounding is kind of taking a hit because he's doing much more than rebounding this year. And so I still want to see, like I said, which players are going to show up, how the game is going to transpire. But I think overall, it's going to be a tough fall game, very competitive game. And I can't wait. I'm just excited.
Another area that could be key, and something Sampson mentioned, they're really good. Houston is a really good offensive rebounding team. When it comes to defensive rebounding, it's been a struggle for them early, and Alabama it'll be interesting to see if they can keep them off. For Alabama, keep them off the offensive line and being able to complete those defensive positions by securing those defensive rebounds.
Yeah, North Florida is not Alabama, okay, but the Cougs limited them to 24 three-point attempts. They like to get up 43 as possible. So that's going to be a key if the Cougs can run Bama off the three-point line. Jawan last year had 13 rebounds against Alabama coming off the bench. So a different role. They had no answer for him last year. But will that Jawan be present in Saturday's game? Will the glass eater, Jawan Roberts, come to the Saturday's game? We shall see. If not him, who will it be? Will it be Reggie Chaney? Will it be J.V. Francis? Will it be Ramon Walker? It's going to have to be somebody to crash the boards, or Terrence Arsenault. Some of these top 10 matchups, sometimes a player who we least expect comes shining through. Yeah. It might be Arsenault. So who knows? It could be Jamal Shedd, just does everything. Steals, assists, knock down threes. This is going to be a fun matchup. We're hoping that lives to the hype. We shall see Saturday afternoon. ABC, yes, somebody put it out there. Jay Billis is going to be here calling the game on ABC as well with Dan Schulman. So this is a very highly anticipated game on December 10th. And then you know what? On December 17th, we're going to do it all over again on the Cougs play Virginia.
Virginia. I did want to mention this comment by King Jaja. He said, also, I'm so glad what the program is today. Had finals as a student all day, and by the time I tried to get student tickets, they were all gone. So I'll be watching from home unless I get a ticket. Kris, going back just a few years, was that comment going back to the Hawthorne Pavilion?
Hell no. No way, no how. No way, no how. I'm going to just age myself. But when I was a student here at Houston, me and three other of my friends, we were the what they would call it, the rowdies, okay? We were the hecklers. The four of us. We sat like 2 or 3 rows behind the opponent's bench. That was it, okay? We were the hecklers. Now we got 300 students filling up in the student section, racing to get those tickets, and they're gone in minutes.
Seconds.
So the transformation from my time, long time ago to now, is just it's great to see.
One thing we do need to do going forward is make the student space bigger. We need to expand it, make it bigger, more students, maybe put it a little more closer to the court just to have more of a home court impact, because I like from different courts from when I see it around the country.
We'll see, because to do that, you probably got to get some more sponsors to pay for it to make up the revenue part of it. But hey, I'm all for it. I think Andy talked. Who was that? We talked about that a little bit before.
Jeff Conrad.
To Jeff Conrad after we went talk to the players after a practice.
Yeah, during the practice.
So it's being discussed. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I love to
Well,
see it.
I
So
brought
yeah,
it up. I don't know if it's being discussed. But one of the other things that going back to the storyline perspective, I'm seeing something that's been mentioned in the comments is that storyline about players needing to prove something. Kris, like you mentioned, there's going to be a lot of scouts in this building. It's going to be a packed house. You mentioned it's going to be a network television on ABC. Marcus Sasser, Jarvis Walker, those are two big names when it comes to the Houston program. Do you think they have something to prove? And if so, who has more to prove?
maybe Jarris. He may want to prove something to Brandon Miller, but that's my concern. Is we don't need guys to try to prove something because this is not a tournament game. You got 20 more games to go in the regular season after this game against Alabama. You want to play well? Sure. Obviously you do. You want to step up? Marcus Sass want to be the closer? Great. But don't jack up bad shots and ruin your team's chance to win the game because you're trying to prove something. Because you get another chance to prove something against Virginia a week later. And then conference play starts. And the NBA scouts, they're not dumb. Okay? They're not going to see you play one game and judge your potential on NBA draft stock on one game. They're going to see you play multiple times this season. So just keep that in mind and do what the team wants you to do to help your team win the game.
Dan, what say you?
Which one would have more to prove? I would say if I had to pick between the two, I would say probably, dang, maybe Jarris, just because he's younger, and Marcus has a lot more film and more proven, has all the accolades coming into this season. But for me personally, I would say Marcus. I think I want to see him, like I said, not only get off to a good start, get the crowd into it, but if the game is close down the stretch, I want to see him make the right play and finish it, whether it's scoring, whether it's creating or doing whatever the game prohibits. And he's showing that development to where he not only settles for jumpers, but he's more complete of a guard and can get inside and do it from all three levels. And so I really want to see him really shine in the moment. So for me personally, I would say Marcus, just because I think he can do it, and I think he will do it.
He scored 25 last year against Alabama.
Yeah, and hopefully he can stay healthy, and hopefully that's not something that impedes him from being able to play now. In regards, like we mentioned throughout the show, in regards to that cut, it doesn't. Sam said he doesn't expect that to be a big deal, even though it is painful in regarding to the 5 stitches and his shoulder. I mean, the shoulder wasn't bothering him before that injury. It looked like Kelvin said, like I mentioned at the beginning, at the top of the show, he said that Sasser was ready to put on a show against North Florida. But we're going to wrap things up once again. For those of you that watched and or are listening to the audio only version, this has been Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. Let's Rage Coogs, the unofficial Houston post-game show for men's basketball and football. Final big thank you to our sponsors in Hoop and Holler, the Houston Cougars Micro Collective, the entity behind the Star Pizza commercials, who Star Pizza is also a sponsor of Let's Rage Coogs, Houston's best pizza since 1976, with multiple locations across the Houston area. In the topic of food, if you're in the mood for some Tex Orleans cooking, be sure to check out and pay a visit to one of our other partners in BB's, with multiple locations across the Houston area. Tex Orleans Cooking is just a short drive away. Be sure to follow them on social media at BB's Tex Orleans on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That's at BB's Tex Orleans. If you are in the Houston area and you are in need of office supplies, whether it be tables, chairs, whatever other office supplies there is, what is the modern office here in 2022? Make sure that it is our guys at Challenge Office Products. To contact them, be sure to do so at 713-644-4007. And last but not least, you're going out of town and need a temporary home for your furry friend. Make sure that it is the Fritz Kennel, the family-owned and operated business that specializes in dog and cat boarding, daycare, and bathing. They are located at 9513 Yuppendale Drive in the city of Houston. And if you do want to contact them, be sure to do so at 713-464-9852. Once again, Houston, number 1 Houston defeats North Florida 76-42. Jamal Shed, impressive way without scoring a single point. He had 10 assists, he had 4 steals, he had 4 rebounds, he had 1 block, and most importantly, he had 0 turnovers. Jarvis Walker, his first collegiate career double-double with 12 points and 10 rebounds. Tremont Mark also got into double figures with 10 points. And this is interesting. JVA Francis got into double figures, 14 points, 7 of 9 shooting. And obviously, of course, Marcus Sasser, who was really hot early on in this game, had 12 points on 5 of 7 shooting. Before we close it out, Kris, I'll go to you first. Where can people find you, and any final takeaways, either Houston, North Florida, or upcoming against Alabama?
You can find me on Twitter at VHR Review, Houston Roundball Review on YouTube, HoustonRoundballReview.com, Houston Roundball Review on Instagram and TikTok. I'm looking forward to Saturday's game. See 2 talented teams playing in a top 10 matchup in December. So I'm looking forward to that. But overall, it's a matchup in December. So just keep that in mind. It's a home game. So I'm picking the Cougs to win because it's a home game. But if they lose, the season is not over. So let's keep that in perspective as well. If they win, does that mean they're going to go undefeated? It means they beat Alabama on December 10th. So let's keep it all in perspective. But fans, be here early. Get your shirts, put your shirts on, be loud, and enjoy the matchup Saturday inside Fertitta Center, 2 p.m. on ABC with Dave Billis and Dan Schumann calling action. But fans, get early, and let's have some fun.
Da'Yon, where can people find you?
Find me on all social media platforms at Da'Yon Dunlap. That's Dayondunlap. Good experience tonight overall for the team. Another good showing defensively. Got better rebounding and playing together collectively against Alabama. I'm looking forward to getting off to a good start. I think we really haven't. We put together a complete game against bad competition. I want to see us to put together a quality game against really good competition, just to prove that we are one of the top teams in the nation, and also to prove our #1 ranking. I think is well deserved. People are still doubting us at home. I'm expecting a great atmosphere, so I want to see the fans come out, be loud, be proud, and I just really hope our stars shine bright and our team play well. I'm going to go out and expect them. I expect them to win. I expect them to get the dub. And I think Jairus is going to play really well. I think he's going to have back-to-back double-doubles in that game. That's one of my predictions. And Marcus and Jamal, and also Tremont. I think all 3 of them will play well. Marcus and Tremont will be in double figures. Jamal will have a stellar game all the way around.
Once again, thank you guys that did watch and tuned in live. Thank you guys for the support, because if it weren't for viewers like you guys, there would be no less Rage Coogs. Tony M, thank you too. I had someone say this to me post-game. They said, we need to take naps. I'm doing fine because the grind continues, and I know all 3 of us continue to put in that grind because it's barely December and we're on the road to March. So we got a long way to go. Once again, the final score: Houston, #1 Houston defeats North Florida 76-42. They'll be back in action on Saturday afternoon, 2 p.m. inside the Fertitta Center against #8 Alabama, network television on ABC. Once again, this has been Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. We'll see you Saturday following the conclusion of Houston and Alabama.